How's it going, everyone? It's time for another edition of Fight in Focus, presented to you exclusively by Fite. I'm Jon Alba, and we have a very special presentation of Fight in Focus ahead of Impact Wrestling Hard to Kill, which of course you can find right here streaming live January 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, presented by Impact Wrestling. We are chatting with the walking weapon himself, the Impact World Champion, Josh Alexander. Josh, thanks so much for hopping on Fight in Focus here. It's been a whirlwind, I know, especially during the holiday seasons. How you holding up coming into the pay-per-view here?
I mean, things are good. I got to stay home with the family for the holidays, all things considered, with the things leading up to the pay-per-view with Bully Ray. Otherwise, though, getting to celebrate being the longest reigning Impact champion and all this other stuff a couple days ago, it's all pretty good leading into Hard to Kill for me.
I want to bring that up right off the bat, actually. As we record this, it was just this week that you surpassed Bobby Roode to become the longest reigning Impact World Champion of all time. This is a company with more than 20 years of history to this point. What did checking that off the bucket list mean for you, and how significant is that accomplishment?
Well, I don't think it was ever on the bucket list because it never was something that crossed my mind when I won the championship, to be honest. But it certainly is significant, especially when you see those names, the Stings, the AJ Styles, and the Bobby Roodes, and all these people that really were the ones that inspired me to even, become a professional wrestler. And that's not just me saying that, that's completely true. To now go down in the history books, as somebody who's surpassed them, in line with names like that inspired me, it means a great deal.
What do you think the legacy of the Impact World Championship is? You just mentioned some of the names there, the Stings, the Kurt Angles, someone who is obviously one of your biggest inspirations. The company has had a tumultuous past, but really finds itself in strong footing right now. So what do you see as the legacy of this championship?
Well, I mean, for me, it started just watching as a fan. This was the alternative for pro wrestling fans. This was my spot to watch because I didn't like the other thing I was seeing on TV all the time, right? So you got to see guys leave those bigger companies, come down to Impact Wrestling during that growth period while it was still growing into what it became, and it was where they reinvented themselves and really arrived. For someone like Christian Cage, who was never viewed as being world championship material, he came to Impact Wrestling and he put his stamp on it that he is world championship material. And then when he went back, he won the world championship. You know what I'm saying? This championship means a great deal because of everybody that's held it, from the Stings to the Kurt Angles to the Abysses and all these other names that, I know and love, and I know a lot of other people do. But it really is, to me, it's like the alternative to show that, if you don't think that this person can, we're going to prove you wrong. And that's what it's been for me as a fan and now as a pro wrestler as well.
It was very cool for me to watch you over the last year, and we all knew how talented you were as a performer, but you really were thrust in a position where it was sink or swim. You are the guy, you are the brand, you got to go out there, wrestle a variety of different opponents with different backgrounds, and you succeeded at a high rate. And many people look back at your 2022 as one of the best for a world champion in a very long time. You found yourself in constant top 10 lists amongst the best wrestlers in the world. How gratifying was the last year for you, and what did you learn about yourself as a wrestler?
I mean, it was never my goal to for any of that to transpire. I looked at it show to show, month to month, opponent to opponent, and all that stuff. But the way I apply myself in wrestling has never really changed. I always want to go out there and I want to do the absolute best I can with whoever I'm in the ring with. I want to exceed everybody's expectations, including my own. And that's the way I kind of do things. So whether it be the first defense against Ishii on the Eric Young, and then snowballing all the way through Eddie Edwards to the Mike Bailey match in defense I had, it was always the same plan. And it kind of, all came together where you look back, and by the time I look back on it, there was matches I forgot I had that, when I look back, I'm like, damn, that one was pretty good. I can't believe I forgot that one. And it's because the next one was the one I was concentrating on all the time, right? But when you stop, when I finally achieved this goal and stuff like that, when I stopped and I smelled the roses and I look back on everything, it's awesome because me as a fan and now as a pro wrestler, the thing I love and take a lot of pride in is doing my job exceptionally well. And when I won the championship, there was a lot of other responsibilities that came into play that I never thought about, and they all kind of took me by surprise. But they were all challenges, and I just want to be challenged all the time. So it was really motivating for me, and it was something that I really was chomping at the bit to see if I could succeed at. Because if I drop the ball at any of those other things, the wrestling thing is easy, but if I drop the ball with any of those other things, I wouldn't have this championship for as long as I have. So I'm very grateful that I was given those opportunities and kind of thrust into that position. And I've swam instead of sank so far. So
I'm so glad that you brought up all those different opponents that you wrestled, because it really was such a wide array of talent that you squared off with. One that really stood out to me, and you listed him, Speedball Mike Bailey, who I thought had one of the best 2022s as well. And I thought your match with him was just exceptional. He's on this Hard to Kill card. Do you have any thoughts on Mike Bailey? Because he is someone that had a really strange occurrence where he wasn't able to come into the United States for a long period of time, and then he's able to get back in, and just he took the entire wrestling scene by storm last year.
Nothing that Mike Bailey has done in this past year surprises me whatsoever. If I had the footage, I would pull it up and I'd tweet it out so everybody could see it, because I was the one that was calling it. Any Canadian wrestler or Canadian wrestling fan that was watching Mike Bailey while he was stuck in this country knew that the second he got back into the spotlight of the American indies and then the American wrestling scene, because that's where everybody seems to thrive so much in North America, it was going to be nothing but success for him. And it was a year before he signed his contract. I wrestled him on the very first show that ran in Canada post COVID. It was an outdoor show, and I wrestled him. And after the match, I grabbed the microphone, wasn't scripted or anything. I said, it was a year and a half ago, Scott D'Amore came in this very ring in this promotion. He said I was the best unsigned talent wrestler in the world. Well, I'm signed. I'm the X Division champion now. I'm doing great. But looking at you, man, you are the best unsigned talent in the world. Whenever you get a chance, whomever is with, hopefully it is with Impact, you're going to do nothing but great things. And, everything's transpired the way it is. He's part of the team and he's killing it. And I couldn't be happier for him.
Really great crop of talent in Impact Wrestling that are going to be participating on this Hard to Kill show. Again, January 13th, 8 p.m. on Fite. You can find it. You can pre-order it right now if you'd like to as well. But I'm here to talk to you, man. You've got Bully Ray in a Full Metal Mayhem match for the Impact World Championship. We've talked about your accolades as a professional wrestler in between the ropes, the three ropes, the four corners. There's few people in the world better than you, if anybody, at that. But now you're walking into a guy who is a hardcore wrestling legend in his own right, in a match that seems to, for all intents and purposes, favor him. How do you prepare for a situation like that?
Oof. I mean, it's definitely different going into this one with everything that's transpired and stuff like that. But the thing is, I said it earlier, I want to be challenged. And that's part of the reason why I demanded this to be a Full Metal Mayhem match. I wanted this to be a Full Metal Mayhem match because that's the stuff that Bully Ray has hung his hat on for most of his 30-year career. That's the stuff that he's known for. Any wrestling fan knows TLC, tables, that is everything that is synonymous with Bully Ray. So for me, who's not known for any of that, I don't think any fan can find footage of me using any of this stuff. I'm going into uncharted territory using all this stuff at Hard to Kill. But, I'm really excited for the challenge. I think, I can check a lot of boxes in pro wrestling. I think fans these days, they seem to want to paint everybody into their corners of this guy's a technical wrestler, this guy's a high flyer, this guy's this, and for me being a professional wrestler, I want to be good at everything. So much like when I won the championship and you said I was thrust into all this other stuff and all this growth I've had, and I had to learn, kind of on the go. The same thing is true with Hard to Kill when I go in there in Full Metal Mayhem, first time using ladders, chairs, tables, everything else. And I'm really excited to, give the fans something special and show that I can do anything.
It's been a really intriguing story as it's unfolded too, because we saw Bully Ray come back at Bound for Glory. He wins the Call Your Shot gauntlet. So a guy that wasn't even in the equation, probably wasn't even on your radar, is all of a sudden the number one contender. And he spent a few weeks trying to kind of weasel his way into earning your trust. And ultimately, you saw the true colors of who a guy like Bully Ray is. What have you learned about him during the last couple of months?
I mean, he's everything I thought he was, and then some, I guess. I had my reservations from the get go, be it in front of or behind the curtain. And Bully's a guy that he craves like power. Really, that's the only thing. Whether it be the world championship or influence and all this other stuff, like he wants things his way, and he's going to make it happen that way. By hook or by crook. And it's just not the way I operate. I've said it in promos, but it's true in real life, man. Like I go through all of this stuff in pro wrestling. I try to remain as grounded and as humble as possible at all times. And I just want to be able to look myself in the mirror at the end of my career. I want to be able to look my kids in the eyes and my wife in the eye, and know I did everything right. And it might not be the easiest path, but I did it, and it's something I can be proud of. And I don't think Bully can say the same, because sometimes he takes that easy route just to get to the top. And much is the same with this thing going on at Hard to Kill.
Part of that whole legacy and building your own legacy is beating talent across multiple generations. You have obviously defeated many in your generation right now, and maybe even some in the up and coming. But a guy like Bully Ray poses a different challenge in that sense. This guy was a flag bearer for Impact Wrestling for a long period of time. Turn the clocks back 10 years, and there were few acts hotter in pro wrestling than Bully Ray. So what does potentially beating a guy like him do for you and your resume?
I think it just kind of helps me arrive on this level of being a main event player in all of the pro wrestling business, not just Impact Wrestling. Bully has had success across every company he's ever been in, much like Christian Cage and Frankie Kazarian and Eric Young, and all these people I've kind of been pitted up against over the last year and a half. And Bully is probably, as a two-time Hall of Famer, he's probably the tippy top of all those names I just mentioned. So it's a big challenge with somebody with 30 years experience in this business. But if I can go out there and show that I can compete and hang and then beat Bully Ray at what he does best, I think that just helps me raise my stock in this business even more.
And you and I have had conversations in the past about just how perilous this road has been for you over the years. You're so well traveled, but some people may not even be all that familiar. And if you're not, you should by now, because Josh has cemented himself as one of the top talents in the world. But Josh, I mean, you broke your neck. And to be thrust into a match where you are surrounded by tables, ladders, chairs, and other elements, my thought process is that's probably not too conducive to that. So, are there any concerns on that level for you entering a match like this?
I'm going to say no, and it might be foolish of me, it might be a little silly, but I never think about my neck being an issue, because that's something that'll just cloud my judgment out there, and it'll make me not be me. Early on, when I returned from my neck injury, I always had it in the back of my head, and I kept, getting small little injuries, trying to overprotect myself or overcompensate, to make sure my neck was okay. And I realized that I wasn't being myself. So it took a while to shake that, and I've never really looked back. And, it won't be any different at Hard to Kill. And I just got to knock on wood and hold my lucky rabbit's foot and hope that I come out in one piece.
Well, we're all hoping for that, but it's also much more than just a championship match. This got pretty personal for you, where Bully threatened to attack your wife. And whenever family gets involved in pro wrestling, there's been times where I see it, I'm like, come on, man, that's not all that believable. What do I know about this man's family? But I also know, even on social media, you really pride yourself in being a family man and how important family is to you. What did that do for the stakes of this match?
I mean, it pissed me off more than I've probably ever been pissed off before. It's, throughout Impact Wrestling, before I won this championship the second time and all this stuff, there was all this talk about me controlling my emotions and keeping them in check and all this other stuff. And it's probably worse now than it ever was with this stuff, because Bully, it would have been different. Like, Moose speared my wife. You know what I mean? He actually did damage to her, but the psychological damage that Bully's kind of done in threatening my wife in front of me and making me feel like completely helpless. He made me feel fear in the ring for the first time that I can ever remember. And that's something that's really affected me. And when you say it adds to the stakes, it just, it just makes me want to make him feel fear and make him feel helplessness. And, I get to do that January 13th at Hard to Kill.
And we are talking to Josh Alexander here on Fight in Focus ahead of Hard to Kill, which you can find right here on Fight. Pre-order it now. It will be streaming live at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time that night. This is one heck of a card, man, and I want to talk about it top to bottom with you. Some of the highlights for me. A guy that has really caught a lot of attention that I've been seeing on social media, outspoken, I'll say. Joe Hendry is defending the Impact Digital Media Championship against Moose. Moose, someone you have a lot of history with. What do you think of that match coming into the show?
I for sure think it's interesting. It's been entertaining watching the build, even, the most recent episode of Impact Wrestling, where I don't know if you saw it, but Joe Hendry made a custom entrance video and song for Moose. Yes. And completely embarrassed him. It was very entertaining. The one thing I'll say is that, Joe Hendry is kind of new in this company right now.
Yeah.
And I think he might underestimate just how much of a scumbag Moose can be and how vicious and violent he can be. So hopefully Joe Hendry's up to the task to deal with that, because he's really been poking the bear for the last little while. And, we're going to see if Joe Hendry can,
Dude, I think Joe Hendry is so entertaining. I really do. I think he's so entertaining. And I love guys that aren't afraid to put themselves out there and into the public eye. And once you cross that threshold of the public court of opinion, letting people determine how they actually view you. I think this was a bold decision, especially against a guy like Moose, who firsthand.
I will say for months, you will hear people humming that entrance tune of Joe Hendry, just throughout locker rooms everywhere. Yes. All day long. So it is catchy, man.
Absolutely. Another match that has got a lot of people talking, and I really want to take a deep dive on her, is Jordynne Grace versus Mickie James. This is a title versus career. You talk about stakes. Stakes don't really get much higher than this at the end of the day. Mickie James is a legend. She's a total legend. And Jordynne Grace is one of the best in the business right now. What are your thoughts on this matchup coming into this pay-per-view, and what legacy, in your opinion, does Mickie James hold?
As far as legacy for Mickie James, man, like, she's up there with the Trish Stratuses and, of the greatest female wrestlers in the history of this business. The amount, just look at her body of work and how long she's been, in her prime performing and stuff like that. Like, it's pretty much unparalleled compared to any other female wrestler I think I've ever seen. And for her to put her career on the line just to kind of go out there at Hard to Kill and see if she can, fight who I regard as the best women's wrestler in the world right now in Jordynne Grace. The stakes are certainly super high for that one. I don't know who I want to win. Jordynne Grace is one of my best friends in the entire world, and I might be rooting for Mickie in this one, because I'd be sad to see her go, along with, I think, everybody else that's going to be watching this pay-per-view. So
I think about what Mickie James has done for women's wrestling in elevating other women and putting them at the forefront. Knowing her in the way that you do, why do you think it's so important to her to showcase this current generation of women and highlight them on a stage like this?
I think Mickie is very grounded, and I think she understands where she came from and how it was when she started. And I don't think maybe she was treated the same way she is now treating this generation. I think it goes back to a lot of that. Like, a lot of people back when she first started were holding and clinging on to their spots, whether they're in their primes or not, and all this other stuff. And I'm sure she had people that weren't like that and helped her along the way, but I think she's embracing the veteran role here, and she really wants to give back to this business before she, hangs up the boots for the last time. But, it could be at Hard to Kill, but hopefully not.
What kind of impact, no pun intended here, have you seen her have on your guys' locker room since she returned to the company?
For me personally, the impact I see is, like, she's a superstar through and through. She's a professional through and through. She has never... You won't find anybody that has a crossword to say about her. She comes in with she's probably the biggest star we have in our company. It's arguable maybe, but to me, that's the way it is. And she has never once been above anybody in that locker room. She changes with everybody else. She, helps everybody, anybody that needs, an ear. She's always there to, offer advice and trying to coach people along, which is, a daunting task while you're also performing and trying to do all this stuff at a high level. But she embraces that. And I think it's done nothing but elevate our entire women's division and a lot of like the men's division as well, because I know I've gone to Mickey for advice from time to time as well.
Well, speaking of the women's division, we've got a great four-way here to determine the number one contender for that women's world championship. Deonna Purrazzo, Killer Kelly, Masha Slamovich, Taylor Wilde. I love all four of these women. I think they are truly the stars of today and stars of tomorrow. Who stands out in a match like that to you?
I mean, four ways are tough. For me, it's usually always Deonna Purrazzo is my pick, man. I think when we're talking about superstars and stuff like that, Deonna Purrazzo is somebody that I've looked to and tried to like mold the way I, kind of have done this championship reign and everything else. Like as for media obligations and all this other stuff, Deonna Purrazzo is somebody that I take a lot away from, and I've learned a lot from just the way she handles herself as a professional. But in between those ropes, bell to bell, just like me, man, she goes 100% every time, and she pulls the best at anybody she's in the ring with, and she's been tremendously successful. But like Masha Slamovich has been a killer this past.
She is an ass kicker, isn't she?
Yeah, exactly. And like we haven't seen Killer Kelly really get to that level yet, but I'm sure she has a chip on her shoulder. She's chomping at the bit for an opportunity. And same with someone like Taylor Wilde, who has a history in this company. She was the knockout that beat Awesome Kong back in the day, and she's returned and she's as good as ever. But she probably has a chip on her shoulder to show that she's still got it and she's in her prime too. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. But for me, my money is always on Deonna Purrazzo, because I think as a pro, she's someone that can handle all the pressure of, being in there with three other women and all that other stuff. So
one of the matches I cannot wait for on the show is Jonathan Gresham versus Eddie Edwards. Eddie Edwards, kind of the old guard of Impact, a star in his own right, at one point considered one of the very best wrestlers in the world, still is extremely, extremely talented. Jonathan Gresham, arguably the best technical wrestler in the world right now. How do you see that in the lens of one of the best of today versus one of the best of maybe the last generation of great Impact stars? And who do you see coming out in that matchup?
First, I don't think it's arguable when you say best technical wrestler in the world. I don't anybody that's been in the ring with John Gresham knows he's the best technical wrestler.
I'm trying to give you a little bit of credit yourself here too.
Oh man,
Alexander, but
I might get an edge there because I'm a little bit stronger. I can brawl a little bit better, stuff like that. But man, John Gresham, as far as technical wrestling goes, he's second to none. But Eddie Edwards, after being in the ring with him at Bound for Glory, I don't think he's
amazing,
dude. He's still one of the best wrestlers on the planet, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for him after that match. And it'd be tough to count him out any day, because he has in the past, until that match where I defeated him, I took that heart and soul title off of him, but he was the heart and soul of Impact Wrestling. And John Gresham, they have beef going back to the last run that Gresham had here before he left, and then now he's back, and I'm sure both of them have a chip on their shoulder, and it's going to be an interesting matchup, a clash of styles. Eddie Edwards is very strong style, came up in the Noah Dojo stuff, and it's going to be interesting to see how those styles clash together. If you want me to pick a winner,
if you feel so comfortable in doing so,
I'll go out there and bet on Gresham. He's newly arrived. He's been training a lot. He's ready. He's chomping at the bit. I think he wants to show that he's arrived here in Impact Wrestling. He's here to stay. So I'll go with John Gresham.
I think he's a great addition to the Impact roster, and somebody that I would very much like to see you one-on-one with for the Impact World Championship here in the not so distant future. And a guy I think we could also see that in the not so distant future perhaps is Trey Miguel, a guy who really was forced to find his own footing as a singles guy after so much success in a different role. And he's really succeeded. Now the X Division champion, a role that you're certainly familiar with. How much is a guy like Trey on your radar, and what do you see his ceiling being?
Well, first, any X Division champion is going to be on my radar as somebody who myself, exercised option C.
That.
I'm very familiar with the fact that, if I'm on the mountaintop, there's always people trying to knock me off, and whoever gets that first opportunity is going to try. And Trey Miguel is no exception. But he's extremely talented. I think we've seen him kind of come into his own, especially with this recent X Division run, this new attitude that he's had. Dude, I think he's super talented, and I think that he, has all the motivation in the world to show that he's one of the best. So it's tough to pick against Trey right now.
Yeah. This is a really, really great card that, again, is coming to you January 13th, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fight Impact Wrestling, presenting Hard to Kill, the main event. Josh Alexander versus Bully Ray in Full Metal Mayhem. A match that is really going to push you to your limits physically. And I'm excited to see you tackle that in a different way. Do you train differently for a match like that?
No, I don't. Because every time, anytime I leave the ring at one of these pay-per-view matches, I've been worse for wear. I've been real sore and beat up. I imagine I'll be even more sore and beat up. But like the one thing that has held true through my entire career, not just this title run, is that, when I go out there, I just give everything I have to make sure that, anybody that's ordered it, anybody that's watching gets their money's worth. That's what I want, because I'm still a pro wrestling fan at the end of the day. And this one's going to be much the same, and with all the added stakes of everything that's gone into it, Bully's going to have to kill me, because I think we've seen a lot of people try over these last couple of years in Impact Wrestling, and whether I'm bleeding from a broken nose or whatever else, I just keep coming, and I'm just thankful that, I have this heart to persevere and push through all these moments. So hopefully, that rings true and is still a thing at Hard to Kill, because I'm sure I'm going to take my bumps and my licks in that match.
I was going to say, you said that he's tried to kill you, but you might even say that Josh Alexander himself is hard to kill. You might even say that. You might even say that. We love full circle storytelling in pro wrestling, Josh Alexander. Listen, 2022 is an amazing year for you. We start off 2023 with a great show like this. What kind of goals do you have for 2023? It's hard to elevate yourself even higher than you currently are, but I'd love to hear what's on your mind as the new year gets underway here.
I mean, it's tough to look past Hard to Kill, but I would love to sustain this world championship run for as long as I possibly can. I know eventually all good things will come to an end, but hopefully that can be sustained, because there's a lot of matches out there that I think people are clamoring to see, be it, the John Grishams, like you said, or, a Steve Macklin out there who's been gaining momentum. I'm sure that, he's had his sights set on me, and it would throw a wrench into his plans if it were Bully Ray coming in with the championship, because that's all he wants. But, I would like to sustain this. I've made it pretty vocal that, I want to get to Japan. I've put this Impact bumper sticker on my back to be an ambassador for this company and this locker room. And I'm just trying to travel the world as much as possible in 2023 and get more eyes on this company and myself.
Yeah, Steve Macklin's got Rich Swann in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Honestly, I love Steve Macklin too. Monster Factory guy. I do a lot of work with the Monster Factory. I absolutely love what he's been able to do. I want to wrap by piggybacking off of what you just said. You put the Impact bumper sticker on you. You're trying to travel the world with it. Why is it so important for you to represent the brand in the way that you do?
Because I love this place, man. I love this locker room. I think we are one of the most talented groups. I think if you were to take our locker room and have like an Impact versus AEW or an Impact versus WWE or an Impact versus New Japan show, we would stack up and match up with those guys perfectly. Our Knockouts division is second to none. Our X division is insane, and like the heavyweight division as well. And I take a lot of pride in this company, and I think that, as you said, there were some dark times, and people have kind of tuned out over the years and not given us a chance. So if I can take that bumper sticker around the world and people can see me wrestle in main events in Australia and the UK and all these other places I'm going this year, and be like, damn, that guy's at Impact, he's the Impact World Champion, maybe I'll check it out. And through checking it out to see me again, they'll discover how good our locker room and our shows are and all this other stuff. So it'll just help everybody and help this company grow, and that's my goal.
Anything else you'd like to add about this Hard to Kill show?
I mean, for as long as I've been in Impact Wrestling, these pay-per-views that we have quarterly are, they hit home runs every single time, from the start of the show to the end of the show. And being someone who has been the world champion now for, nearly a year, going out there in the main events, there are times where I'm sitting in the back. I'll give you one example. I was at Emergence in the back, warming up before my main event match, and Mia Yim and Jordan Grace are in the ring, and the crowd is going absolutely insane the entire time, as they were the entire night, but it was just to a different level in that one. And all I felt in the pit of my stomach was nerves, because I was just like, how am I going to follow this match, man? And that's the way it is every time. And that's the way it should be. Like, we put on these shows from the first match all the way through the main event. Everybody is raising the bar every time, and I don't think you see that in a lot of pro wrestling pay-per-views. So if you want something that you're going to get your money's worth from start to finish, tune into Hard to Kill.
Full Metal Mayhem match. Josh Alexander versus Bully Ray for the Impact Wrestling World Championship, exclusively at Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill pay-per-view. Again, streaming January 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can pre-order it right now, order it the night of the event. Whatever you got to do, make sure it's on your screen, because it's going to be one hell of a show. Josh Alexander, the Impact World Champion, congratulations on your record-breaking run. Thank you for joining me here on Fight in Focus, and thank you to everyone for tuning in to this Impact exclusive edition of Fight in Focus right here on Fight. We'll see you next time.